In this video, we are going to learn about square roots and cube roots. Now, recall that 2 and 3 are common exponents. When we raise a number to the power of 2, we say that we are taking the square of that number. For example, if we consider a number 6 and we raise that to the power of 2, then we call this 6 squared. And this is 6 multiplied by itself 2 times, and that is equal to 36. So 6 squared is equal to 36. And if we raise a number to the power of 3, then we say that we are taking the cube of the number. For example, if we consider 2 to the power of 3, then this is 2 multiplied by itself a total of 3 times. So we have 2 times 2 times 2, and that is equal to 8. So we say that 2 cubed is equal to 8. Now let us consider the inverse operations of taking the square and taking the cube. Now the inverse operation of taking the square is taking the square root. What does this mean? If we consider the example, 6 to the power of 2, that is 6 squared, is equal to 36, then this means that when we consider 6 and then we take the square of it, then we get 36. So the inverse operation should somehow start from 36 and then end with 6. So basically, when we have the number 6 and we take the square of it, then we end up with 36. So if we start from 36 and we take its square root, then we should get 6. Now the way we write that is by using the radical symbol, which we write like this, and we say that the square root of 36 is equal to 6. So let us consider the notation. We write the square root of 36. Here we call the purple symbol the radical symbol, and we call the blue number 36 the radicand. So we use the radical symbol and a radicand to express the square root of any number. Now, 6 squared is equal to 36, but if we consider negative 6 whole squared, then that is equal to negative 6 times negative 6. That is negative 6 multiplied by itself 2 times. And that will also be equal to 36. So we can see that just like 6 squared is 36, negative 6 whole squared is also 36. This means that along with 6, another square root of 36 should be negative 6. Now, how do we write that using symbols? Actually, the radical symbol is used to represent the positive square root. So if we use this symbol, then we denote the positive square root of 36, and that is equal to 6. And if we want to express the negative square root, then we write that using symbols as this, negative square root over 36. And that will be equal to negative 6. So we can see that the number 36 has 2 square roots. It has one positive square root, which is 6, and one negative square root, which is equal to negative 6. Now, note that all positive numbers have 2 square roots. One is positive and one is negative. For example, if we consider the number 4, then this number has a total of 2 square roots. The positive square root is equal to 2, and the negative square root is equal to negative 2. This is because 2 squared is equal to 4, and negative 2 whole squared is also equal to 4. Let us consider another example. Let us consider the number 49. Now 49 also has 2 square roots. The first square root, the positive one, is 7, and the negative square root is negative 7. Now numbers like 4 and 49, they are called perfect squares. And this is because they are the squares of integers. And because of that, we can see that their square roots are also integers. Now, there are also many numbers which are not perfect squares. For example, the number 23. Now, how do we write the square roots of the number 23? We write it like this: plus or minus square root of 23. And this will not be an integer. We can use a calculator to find the approximate value of this. If we use a calculator, the approximate value will be plus or minus 4.7958. So we can see that the square root is not an integer, and we can write it in its exact form like this: plus or minus square root of 23. And if we want to find an approximate value and write it in decimals, we can write it as approximately plus or minus 4.7958. Now, let us consider the number 0. If we want to find the square roots of the number 0, then using the logic we applied in the previous numbers, we should get plus or minus the square root of 0. So that will mean plus or minus 0, because 0 squared is 0. But negative 0 and plus 0 are both the same thing, and that is just 0. So what this means is that the number 0 has only one square root, and we write it like this: the square root of 0 is 0. On the other hand, negative numbers have no real square roots, and this is because the square of any real number is non-negative. So if we consider something like the square root of negative 25, then this will not be real. So negative numbers have no real square roots. Now let us consider the inverse operation of taking the cube. The inverse operation of taking the cube is taking the cube root. Let us consider an example. If we have 2 to the power of 3, that is 2 cubed, this is equal to 2 multiplied by itself 3 times, and that is equal to 8. So if we take the cube of the number 2, then we obtain the number 8. So if we use the inverse operation of the cube root, then if we start from 8, we should get to 2. That means that if we have the number 2 and we get to 8 by taking the cube, then if we take the cube root of 8, then we should get back to 2. Now, how do we represent this symbolically? The symbol for the cube root is like this, and we write that the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. Now, every real number has exactly one real cube root. The cube roots of positive numbers are positive. For example, if we consider the cube root of 125, that will be equal to 5. This is because the cube of 5 is 125. Let us consider another example. Let us consider the cube root of 27. This is equal to 3. This is because 3 cubed is equal to 27. So we can see that if we consider the cube root of positive numbers, then the final answers are positive. Now the cube roots of negative numbers are negative. Let us consider a few examples. If we consider the cube root of negative 64, we will get negative 4. This is because the cube of negative 4 is negative 64. Let us consider another example. If we consider the cube root of negative 1000, then this is equal to negative 10. And this is because the cube of negative 10 is equal to negative 1000. So we can see that if we take the cube root of negative numbers, then the final answers are negative. Now the numbers 125, 27, negative 64, and negative 1000, all of these numbers are called perfect cubes. And this is because they are the cubes of integers. And because of that, we can see that the cube roots of all of these numbers are also integers. Now there are also a lot of numbers which are not perfect cubes. For example, if we consider the number 20. Now the way we write the cube root of numbers like this is like this. This represents the cube root of 20. And we can use a calculator to calculate the approximate value, and that's approximately 2.7144. So if we want to write the exact value, we write it like this, the cube root of 20. And if we want to write the approximate value in decimals, then we can write it like this. It's approximately 2.7144. So we can see that 20 is not a perfect cube, and so its cube root is not an integer. Now, let us consider a few practice problems. Now, the first one is the square root of 100. Now, this will be equal to 10. This is because 10 squared is 10 multiplied by itself 2 times. That's 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. So the square root of 100 is 10. Next, we have negative square root of 100. So that means we have the negative of square root of 100, which is 10. So this is negative 10. Then we have square root over negative 100. Now note that negative 100 is a negative number, and the square roots of negative numbers are not real. So that means that this is not a real number. Let us consider a few more practice problems. First of all, we have the cube root of 1000. Now, this will be equal to 10 because 10 multiplied by itself 3 times, that is 10 cubed, is equal to 1000. The next one is the negative of the cube root of 1000. So we have the negative of the cube root of 1000, which is 10. And so we are left with negative 10. Then we have the cube root of negative 1000. Now this will be negative 10. This is because negative 10 whole cubed, that is negative 10 multiplied by itself 3 times, that is equal to negative 1000. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time.